Hi, my name is Jamie, and my remix is based on my rhetorical analysis essay, which was over an Instagram post made by 17 Magazine on how to fight anxiety during quarantine. And the audience of that was Instagram users. The exigence was people were experiencing a lot of anxiety during quarantine. And the constraints were that only Instagram users could view the post, and the post was only visible on the guides page of Instagram, unless you happen to be following 17 Magazine. So the remix project that I'm doing is a trifold poster board. It's a survey that I made called How Has the Pandemic Affected Your Mental Health? And I administered it online to my friends who go to Mizzou and in person to random students on campus. In total, I gathered 52 responses, and I put my results on this poster board, and I'm going to talk about or analyze the results of the survey. The audience of the survey is Mizzou students, including you guys, and the exigence is students at Mizzou are experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety. I would say this project is significant because the content is sourced from our peers here at Mizzou, so the audience can relate to it, which is what I wanted. I wanted to connect and relate to the audience. So I thought a good way to do that would be to make this survey and get the statistics of how students at Mizzou really feel. But the constraints, I would say the audience is small because I chose to do a survey of such a small group of people, specific group of people, meaning only students at Mizzou, so this message wouldn't really be received as well with people who don't go to Mizzou or just anybody else in the world. I originally wanted to do a sculpture or an art piece, but I couldn't think of how I could relate this message into a piece of art. It just wasn't working in my head for me, so I was thinking about other things I could do, and I thought of a survey, and that was a way for me to connect with my audience or relate to them, so that was the best option for me. To introduce this project, I wrote a little paragraph, and it says the novel coronavirus emerged at the beginning of the year, leading to a global pandemic within a few months. Schooling had to be completely reinvented, and many educators shifted to hybrid or online learning. The uncertainty associated with academics, the fear of catching the disease, the anxiety of keeping our loved ones safe, and the dubiety of having a normal life again has started to take a toll on the mental health and behavior of college students. Now it is more important than ever to develop early methods of identification, prevention, and coping for the vulnerable population. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the survey questions and talk about the results. So let's start with question 1, which was has your overall stress increased or decreased or remained the same during the ongoing pandemic? And the next question was, if you answered increase on the last question, which factor contributed the most to that stress? These two figures show the raw impact that the pandemic has had on student stress levels at Mizzou. It's clear that students are struggling, with 64% of them reporting an increase in overall stress due to COVID-19. Of that majority, 75% say that the main source is stress related to academics. These numbers don't necessarily come as a surprise because we know school has been much different this year, but it's quite obviously not an ideal circumstance for students or educators. Question 3 was, has your overall motivation increased or decreased or remained the same during the ongoing pandemic? This graph shows that students have not only been experiencing an increase in stress, but a staggering 82% also report a decrease in motivation as a result of the ongoing pandemic. This figure may seem quite shocking to some, but the reason is simple. Our campus, like most, has restricted just about every aspect of normal college life, and with that comes a huge increase in time spent alone. That creates feelings of sadness and hopelessness, which tend to hamper one's motivation. The next question asks, have you ever experienced any of the following as a result of the pandemic? The first option was moderate to severe depression, second option was moderate to severe anxiety, and the third option was none. 63% of students said that they had or currently are experiencing one or both depression or anxiety, with more students struggling with anxiety than depression. If scaled up to the current student population at Mizzou, that 63% would be approximately 19,000 students. That is more than enough reason for Mizzou to step up and do something about this problem. The next two questions relate to how students have been coping so far. So the next question was, do you feel you are able to cope adequately with the stress related to the current situation? And the next question after that was, what coping methods, tools, techniques have you used to mitigate your elevated stress and anxiety? So the question is, how are students coping? And from what we see here, most of them aren't. The main resource that they are using is friends and family. And I expected this to be the most popular answer because when asked what they think the barriers to mental health care are, 70% answered social stigma. This is why it is so important to spread awareness and eventually erase that stigma. Moving into the conclusion, my last survey question was, in your opinion, what are the barriers to mental health care? The number one answer was social stigma, followed by financial concerns, followed by lack of information available, and so on. This kind of proves my point about the whole stigma around mental health. That's what we were trying to eliminate, which brings me into awareness. It's really that simple. The more we talk about it, the easier it is to cope. And that really is the truth. You can talk about it with friends, family, a therapist, or the community needs to talk about it more to really eliminate that stigma around social or mental health awareness. Some things that Mizzou can do to mitigate stress and anxiety: they can organize socially distanced outdoor activities, online mental health check-in Zooms, online meditation, yoga, or well-being sessions, encourage teachers to create unique and engaging assignments like this one, put up mental health awareness posters that list resources. Some things that students can do: you can engage yourself in practices like yoga, mindfulness, fun activities, healthy dieting, which is really important, and healthy routines, which is the most important thing, I think, because you can really dig yourself into a hole and not want to do anything, and developing a healthy routine every day can really pick yourself up and get you moving and kind of relieve some of those stressful feelings. Or you can go get some fresh air, go outside. I know this is something I like to do when I feel muggy or trapped in my room. I'll go outside and breathe, and I'll feel a lot better. You can reach out to friends and family, meditate, join an online group. If all else fails, you can always call a mental health line. You can find those numbers on Google. I forgot to mention that my works cited is on the back of the poster board, and I did cite both of the posters that were that we had to list for the proposal. So those are on the back, as well as the website SurveyMonkey that I used for my survey.